So, what if balance wasn't just a feeling, but a fundamental, measurable constant of the entire universe? Well, today, we're jumping into a really fascinating framework called Crippin's theory. It proposes a single equation for harmony that supposedly connects everything, from galaxies all the way down to our own consciousness. Let's see how this thing is supposed to work. The whole theory kicks off with this incredibly bold claim. The geometry of empathy is the final equation. Right off the bat, this is telling us that our deepest connections, empathy, aren't just messy feelings. They might actually follow a universal mathematical logic. It's really trying to build a bridge between hard science and the human heart.
So what's the big idea here? At its absolute core, Crippin's theory, and its guidebook, the Atlas Codex, is all about the idea that balance isn't just something you feel. Nope, it's a universal constant that you can actually measure.
And this is where it gets interesting, because the theory completely reframes what we think of as balance. It's not about being perfectly still, like a perfectly stacked pile of rocks. Instead, it's all about an active, dynamic rhythm. It's a constant adjustment called reciprocity, where everything in a system is always moving in perfect tune with everything else. Okay, so if balance is a constant, then how in the world do you measure it? Well, that brings us to the mathematical heart of the whole theory. And here it is, the Atlas T equation. It looks simple enough, right? It says T, which is the constant of balance, is just the product of three key things. P for proportion, the Greek letter kappa, which stands for phase, and R for resonance. Now, let's break down what those actually mean in plain English.
To really get this, let's use an analogy. Imagine you're a marathon runner, and you're trying to hit that perfect, sustainable pace that'll get you through the entire race without crashing.
First up, we've got P, for proportion. For our runner, this is your ideal stride length, the perfect geometric design of your movement, and it's not random. The theory says it's linked to these super efficient patterns we see all over nature, like the golden ratio. So you can think of P as having the perfect underlying structure.
Next is kappa, or phase. Now, if proportion was the design of your stride, phase is your timing and your rhythm. It's that continuous, calibrated movement that keeps you from burning out halfway through. This really drives home that idea that balance comes from constant adjustment, not from just standing still.
And that brings us to R for resonance. So if you have the perfect stride, P, and the perfect pace, kappa, what do you get? You get resonance. It's the stable, sustained energy that flows from getting the other two right. It's the coherence that keeps your whole system from just falling apart.
Now, the theory then tries to ground all this in a kind of conceptual physics. It suggests this perfect state of balance, which it calls the T-state, happens because of a tension between two opposing forces. You've got this expressive outward energy, the reality field, and this stabilizing potential energy it calls the black matter field. True balance, then, is that dynamic sweet spot right in the middle of the two. Okay, so this all applies to the universe. But what about us? How does it scale down to the human experience? Well, this is where it gets really personal, because it applies these exact same geometric principles to our own minds. The idea here is that our whole internal world is built from just four basic geometric shapes. You've got the triangle, which is all about clarity and direction, like a spark of fire. Then there's the square, giving us stability and structure, grounding us like the earth. The circle represents connection and flow, just like water. And finally, the spiral, which embodies growth and putting things together, like air. And this isn't just abstract theory. It's actually applied in a digital tool called the Atlas system. It uses these shapes to help people connect their emotions with their intentions. And the whole point is to reduce that mental static, that noise between our wandering mind, what scientists call the default mode network, and our focus mind, the task positive network. It's all about getting your head and your heart into coherence.
So, from the intimacy of our own minds, the theory scales all the way back up again. It applies that very same equation to how we design our physical world, our buildings, and even our cities.
At the biggest possible scale, the theory imagines this planetary resonance grid. It actually models the entire Earth as a dodecahedron, that 12-sided shape that Plato linked to the cosmos itself. This model suggests there are 12 key zones around the globe that act as these hotspots for culture, all kind of humming with the same geometric harmony.
I love this slide because it's a fantastic way to see how that core equation becomes real, something you can actually touch. The pyramid, with its super stable design, that's proportion, P. The ziggurat, with its steps, represents that calibrated rhythm of phase, kappa. And then you have the dome, with its incredible acoustic harmony, that embodies resonance,
R, creating this shared, energetic space for everyone inside.
And now we get to what might be the theory's most powerful and honestly most surprising connection. It draws a direct parallel between our own human experience and some pretty serious hard engineering. Just look at this. On the left, you have something called a Smith chart. It's a tool radio engineers use to find the absolute perfect balance of proportion and phase to get the strongest possible signal. The theory is arguing that you and I, are doing the exact same thing inside ourselves when we try to find emotional coherence and connect with someone through empathy.
So think about that for a second. The medium is totally different, right? One is radio waves, the other is human consciousness. But the underlying math, the geometry you need to solve to get a stable, coherent connection, this theory claims it's exactly the same. It's a wild idea that the geometry of balance is truly universal.
And the entire theory builds to this one beautiful, powerful image, the human heart acting as a 13th node right at the center of that 12-sided Earth grid. And it suggests that the heart's electromagnetic field is the ultimate tuning fork, synchronizing our own personal rhythm with the geometry of the entire planet.
So, that leaves us with one final question to think about. If balance is really an active rhythm, all governed by a universal geometry, what pattern, what mix of clarity, connection, stability, and growth defines the most balanced and resonant rhythm in your own life?